Hello everybody, my name is Johnny and welcome to this session on location analytics inside of ArcGIS Insights. In this video, I will be covering a basic introduction to Insights, outlining some of its main features and capabilities. I will then follow this up by running through a short demo of exploratory analysis, and in this case looking at the distribution of electric charging points across England and Wales. After the demo, I'll finish off by pointing you towards a number of useful examples and resources so you can get started with yourself with using Insights. So first of all, what is ArcGIS Insights? Insights is a self-service location analytics tool which is available within the ArcGIS platform. It is a tool that combines smart mapping and spatial analytics capabilities with traditional statistical analytics and charting. It does this all together in one single application. This is important because by visualizing and analyzing your organization's data in the context of location, you are able to pull out trends and patterns which are hidden when looking only at a table of data in a spreadsheet. For example, you might be able to see clustering of customer locations or pull out important links between different locations of incidents in your dataset. This power of location to provide new and important insight is fundamental and obvious to us GIS users, but we probably all have colleagues who haven't yet been exposed to the power of using location in their data. Insight's goal is to open up and democratize location and statistical analytic capabilities to as wide an audience as possible, and it does this by delivering spatial analysis in an easy-to-use and widely accessible way. The user experience emphasizes drag and drop analytics, on-the-fly filtering and aggregation, as well as a whole plethora of different interactive visualizations, and these all combine to produce what is a very fast and flexible way of exploring your own data. In fact, in my own experience, I find that when I'm using Insights, I often end up with answers to questions that I didn't even think of asking when initially bringing in my data to analyze. And I think this is a really powerful tool, therefore, for data exploration. So let's now look at an overview of the capabilities of ArcGIS Insights. First of all, because Insights is part of the ArcGIS platform, you have easy access to all of the data which is already in your ArcGIS Online or enterprise organization. On top of this, you also have the authoritative data that is available within the Esri ArcGIS Living Atlas. For example, there you can find UK local authority boundaries and demographic data. You can also bring in your own local data files, such as Excel tabular data, CSVs, or configure your access to your organization's data servers. In terms of analytics, Insights delivers a broad range of self-service analytics tools which scale from the basic to more advanced usage. And these range from performing spatial analysis, statistical analysis, predictive exploratory, and link or graph analysis. Importantly, if Insights doesn't have that one specific out-of-the-box tool you need, you can use Python and R integration, which is available in the enterprise and desktop versions to embed some additional analysis or data processing powers into your workflows. All in all, a huge benefit of ArcGIS Insights is that it is empowering your entire organization by democratizing and opening up the access to self-service location and statistical analytics tools. And this means that whether you are a decision maker, a GIS analyst, or a hardcore data scientist, you can have access to a single tool to create, share, and view analysis and reports. In my demo, I'm now going to be exploring electric car charging point location information for England and Wales. I'm going to be doing exploratory analysis related to the issue of access to electric car charging stations. And this is something which is coming to the forefront with concerns from government and watchdogs that a lack of access to locations to recharge an electric car is hampering the consumer uptake. And as part of this, there's also a drive to install the next generation of fast charging stations, which will be able to charge modern electric vehicles at a much faster rate, up to 80% power in 30 minutes. And these are thought to be essential for the future of the electric charging network. So let's jump across into the browser and I'll show you my example. The data for this demo has been downloaded as a CSV from openchargemap.com. This is an open source global dataset of charging locations, and I have extracted out the charging points reported for England and Wales. The data includes useful information, things like charger connection types and operational status, as well as the date at which the charging station was added to the dataset. Let's go across now to the Insights landing page. I'm currently logged into my ArcGIS Online organization, and I want to start off by showing you a workbook that I've already completed doing some analysis on this charging point data. Now, hopefully there will be a link at the end of this video so you can look at this page yourself and use it as a chance to get an idea of some of the different ways in which you can explore data within ArcGIS Insights. In the example, you can see that I've pulled out a wide range of visualizations from the dataset, and you can click on these to explore the data and see how the different charts and things update. As well as maps and visualizations, I've also got some text cards and title cards, and they all allow me to put my data and analysis in context. So let's now have a look at the process that goes into building up this workbook. Let's see how you get started by starting a new workbook from scratch. So this is an empty workbook. I've just initialized it. And the first thing that you will want to do is to add data. This could be content which is already hosted in your ArcGIS Online or Enterprise organization, or you could choose to pull in some authoritative data, or in my case, I'm going to use the CSV that I downloaded from OpenChargeMap. So let's choose to upload a file, and let's add in the OpenChargePoints dataset. And now once this is loaded, it'll become accessible for me then to add into the workbook. You can see that it's been added in the sidebar over here. Scrolling through the side panel, you can see all of the different field headers, which are for the table dataset, and each of these headers, these fields, has an icon which indicates the type of data which is in the column. So, for example, the usage type is a text string field. There's also a numeric field here for the number of charging points at each of the charging stations. The first thing I want to do, because this data contains location information, is to geo-enable the data so I can start working with it spatially. So I'm going to click on the dataset options and click Enable Location. And now I can choose a number of ways of enabling location. I could choose address information, coordinates, geography. In my case, because I've got these longitude and latitude fields, I'm going to choose coordinates. I'm going to run. Click to run the tool. Now that location has been activated for my dataset, I can now drag this into the workbook page, and I can choose a way that I want to visualize this data. So it could be that I want to have some kind of chart or a table, but in this case I'm going to choose a map. You can see that once this data renders on the map, I've now got very complicated but interactive map which I can zoom in and change the extent on to visualize my data and visualize location. In this map card, I've got options to do things like filter the data. I can make selections. I could maybe change the visualization type if instead I wanted a chart. I can do things like synchronize the extents between multiple map cards. So if I zoom in on one of them, it will zoom in on both of them, which is useful for making comparisons between location data. I can click on the info button to view the back of the card, and here I can write a description. I also get an idea of, get some useful statistics, high-level statistics, which may be important to me. The first thing I want to do is to change the look and feel of the map. So I'm going to start off by changing the base map, and clicking on this base map button, I've got an option to change to any of my organization's base maps. In this case, I'm going to choose the light grey canvas. And then I'm going to choose to, instead of look at every single point on the map, I'm going to start investigating a bit more about spatial density. So I'm going to go into the symbolization options, and I'm going to, instead of symbolizing by location, choose to bin up my data and have a look at a heat map of my data. And as you'll see, there's now visualization showing the spatial density, and it's very much concentrated towards London as one of the big urban centre in England and Wales. If I zoom in, you'll see that the heat map dynamically updates depending on the extent and the zoom, and I can now pull out some of the other hotspots in my data, again over some of the big cities. As well as the broad location of charging points, I'm also interested in some of the other attribute information that I have associated with the data. And the first thing I want to look at is looking at trends in time. So in when new charging points, new charging stations have been installed. So if I go to my data set on the side here, I can find the field which refers to date created. Unfortunately, you'll see that at the moment it's showing up as a string field, but I know that it contains date information. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to choose to change it to date time. And Insights will do a calculation behind the scenes and take this text field and convert it into a date field. I could plot that straight onto a map or onto the page and create a time series, and this shows when each of the different charging stations was installed. But actually I want to look at that data aggregated into years and also quarters within the year. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to drag both these fields onto the map and create a chart visualization and choose the stacked column chart. And I'm just going to flip the fields, and now I've got my data showing the number of charging points installed for each year, and it's also showing it broken down by different quarters within those years. And one of the first things I might want to do is to look at some of the recent trends. So if I look at the most recent quarter, I can see where the recent activity has been in terms of installing new charging stations. And actually, as a consumer looking at that data already, I can see that there's quite a positive trend in an increase in the number of charging stations. But looking at just this last quarter, I can see quite an interesting pattern emerge. Actually, Brighton has a really big hotspot, and this actually marries up, having had a bit of research into this, with some recent incentives there have been in the Brighton Town Council, where they've provided grants to install new stations. You can see actually there seems to be a higher density than even London in terms of new charging stations installed at the start of this year. As well as the time information, I was also interested in fast versus slow trickle charging stations. So this is another category which is available within the attributes of my data. I've got a field here which is called charger type, and if I bring this in, I'm going to choose this time to visualize it as a donut chart, and you can see that it breaks down my data, my charging stations, depending on whether they have fast charger or slow charging capability. I can see that roughly a quarter of my charging stations are of this fast charger type. And if I click on them, you can see that the distribution on the map gets filtered and changes slightly. But I also want to see how this trend is also reflected in when charging stations are installed for these fast charger stations. So I'm going to enable cross-filtering, and you can see that now that as well as the map updating, this stacked chart is also updating. And perhaps worryingly, Actually, in 2019, it looks like potentially there are less fast charger stations installed than there were in 2018. So let's just move this card over to the side and make some space to do some more analysis. So we've looked at our data and looked at the spread of individual locations, but now let's look at the trend across different regions and counties within England and Wales. One of the really useful things about having insights embedded in ArcGIS Online is that I have access to my organization's data, but also data from external data sources. So what I'm going to do here is, first of all, again, choose to add data to the page, and instead of searching in my own content, which I could do, I'm going to choose to search for boundaries data. And this is some really useful data supplied by Esri, which has boundary information which could be useful to me. I'm going to type in GB to get data which is relevant to Great Britain. I'm going to take this United Kingdom region boundaries, and I'm going to only look at bringing in the county boundaries. You can see a new map card is added, and this map card has the different counties for the UK shown on it. And I want to aggregate my data to these different regions, and it's very simple to do this. All I have to do is to go over to my location data, drag it in, and when I drag it on top of an existing map, I've got the option to do a spatial aggregation. And when I do this, it opens up some suggested layers to use, and I'm going to run this tool to aggregate all of my individual charging points. And it's going to aggregate this over the UK. And at first you'll see that it's showing a symbolization of kind of a point sized by the number of charging points in each of these counties. I'm going to change it to be a bit more clear. So I'm going to use color instead of a big point size. And it's now in the map visualizing color based on the number of charging stations at each of these locations. Now, I, as well as this, might want to have a look at an infographic displaying this data. So I'm going to open up the spatial aggregation I've created, and I'm going to pull out the name of each of the counties as well as the count. I'm going to bring this out into a tree map, and this tree map will make it really easy to start comparing the number of charging stations across different regions in my data. And I can, if I interact with this tree map, I can see some of the different counties which are doing fairly well in terms of the number of charging stations which are available at each of them. It's interesting to see that Hampshire actually does better than inner London in this case. So you can see how I've quickly done some very useful analysis to pull out different ways of exploring my data. But let's step over now to Insights Analysis View. Switching to the analysis view, you can see that Insights is automatically throughout our building up of our visualizations and displays has been putting together a record of every step we've done in performing that analysis. And this is really useful because it means that rather than creating a model first and then running it, you're just getting a record of every step as you go along. You don't even need to think about it. And you can save this model and you can share it to others, and it automatically kind of documents the methodology which went into creating the reports and the analysis that you did. You can also edit the analysis, you can update or refresh data sets which have gone into the model, which means that it's very easy to perhaps extend existing models. So I could include data for Scotland here, or refresh it for more recent data so that I can keep rerunning my analysis over time. Now, That was a bit of a whirlwind tour, and I didn't get a chance to show you all of the great capabilities which are available within ArcGIS Insights. If you are interested in seeing some more of these capabilities, a fantastic place to go for further resources is the Esri Insights Gallery. In this gallery is a whole host of different insights reports which have been shared out doing analysis, for example, on fish escapes in Scotland or lifeboat call outs along the south coast of England. As well as this, there's some really useful learning resources for insights within the learn.arcgis learning catalogue. Thanks for watching, and I wish you all the best.